Guys, can remember Fear the Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 4, Blood in the Streets, and I was looking forward to this episode, but as you guys know, last week's episode really didn't do much of anything for me. You know, we focused so much on Alex, she really wasn't that much interesting of a character, and I just didn't really know what was going to happen in the rest of this episode, in the rest of the season in general, but damn, this was a good episode. I mean, this episode was shocking, it was revealing, and it really was an episode full of consequence. I mean, pretty much every bad decision that they've made really comes to haunt them in this episode, and I really did like seeing that. And maybe they thought that they were good decisions at the time, but it really shows why these are bad decisions and why no one really is safe, and I definitely did love seeing that. We also found out more about Strand in this episode, some really big reveals that I really didn't see coming at all, but let's get into this episode because I really did enjoy it, and there's a lot to get into. So we start with night on the water and waves crashing into the beach. Nick swims to shore naked with a plastic bag tied to his leg with clothes in it. He staggers to shore, coughing, and collapses for a moment. Then he crawls further in and opens the bag. And we don't know what's in this, and of course, the clothes are in his bag. He then hears a sound. A helicopter speeds above him. There are searchlights and other lights. He gets dressed rapidly, obviously not knowing what this is and kind of terrified because he knows that there are other threats out there. And, you know, so far they've had to dodge, you know, they've gotten very close. They especially last week, they were very close to not losing Chris. I mean, they could have lost Chris very easily. He heads up to the beach, and we see a camp of tents, but they look to be completely abandoned, and he walks among the tents, and a walker staggers along. Nick bangs a jug. He finds to draw out the infected dead. He lures one out and goes slow enough for it to follow him, then ducks into a tent and zips it, and when it gets close to the mesh of the tent, he kills it and pulls it into the tent, and Nick begins to get the thing. Nick gags as he opens up the abominable cavity that begins to smear the gore onto himself, which is just really crazy stuff here. I mean, actually seeing Nick kill, it's something we're not exactly used to seeing. We haven't seen this group kill as much as we have in The Walking Dead. You can really tell that he's starting to understand that he does need to kill, and he coats his clothes, face, and flesh with it. He comes out of the tent and looks around because, of course, if you have blood on you, then the walker thinks that you're dead. And that's still the mentality in this show, is that the walkers still think that. It's just how it is. And I think it's a very interesting rule, but I honestly really do like that. I think it's just really interesting. So on the boat, Travis rants to Madison about Strand cutting the raft loose, and she asks what he can do, and he says to throw him overboard. Madison says that they need him, and she wants to start over, not just survive. Travis, you can tell, just doesn't really trust Strand. You know, he really thinks this guy's very shady, and that they should just throw him overboard and they should just take over. And Travis says they don't even know if this place Strand is talking about exists, which, yeah, I mean, the points that Travis brings up here, they are pretty legit. I can totally understand why Travis doesn't really trust Strand, because of the fact that, you know, his questions gambling their lives on him. You know, he really doesn't know if Strand even really cares about them, or if he's just doing this for himself, or if this is even a side mission, or if there's anything that he's told them is true. He just doesn't trust him right now, and I can totally understand why, because Strand hasn't given them really a reason for them to trust him. I mean, he really hasn't. I mean, think of all the things he said to them, it just hasn't added up. So Chris sits with Ophelia, and without a doubt, we get the most of Ophelia we've gotten all season this episode. She asks why he's not sleeping. He says noise in his head, then asks if she's been to Mexico. She says no, that they never left the neighborhood of their shop. She says that she watched over her parents, and that was her life, that she always took care of them. That's just how it's been. And Chris asks if she had a man in her life, and Ophelia says that she had a few relationships, and it's really interesting the way they kind of bond over this. Chris talks about a girl he was seeing before his mom went back to LA and put him in parochial school, and she says her parents sent her to Catholic school, but she still had fun. And Ophelia says that there are still girls on the planet and he can bank on it, and Chris laughs and she says somewhere out there. They see a small boat approaching. They go check it out, and it's a really nice scene. I like the way they were bonding over this, the fact that they both kind of had to watch over their parents, and that was kind of their life, but you can see that Ophelia's just used to it. That's kind of just how it is. And we see a raft, and the people call for help. Chris asks if he should shoot them, and because he really doesn't know if these people are legit. And Ophelia and Chris run down. He screams for Travis. Chris holds a gun on them. Alicia hears the noise. Travis, Daniel, and Madison come in. Chris says that they just came on board. The guy says that they lost their engine and were drifting. And Strand comes out as Travis asks them questions about where they were and who they saw, because obviously these are things they need to answer. And I like that they are starting to become less and less trustworthy, because they need to be careful about who they trust. And this episode really does show that. So Strand goes for his gun, sees that the clip is gone. The young woman, Vita, is heavily pregnant, and Alicia asks who that could be. Because she doesn't know who this is. And believe it or not, guys, by the way, remember all the development we got with Alex? We don't even see Alex in this episode. So really already, they're not really doing much of anything with her. So Alicia hears noise above, goes up. Alicia hears a voice and says Jack and sees Jack. Basically, if you remember that guy at the very beginning of the season that she was on the radio with, she actually does see him, and she comes upstairs, and the newcomers attack, and Alicia says, please don't do this, asks why he's doing it. He says the ship is a price, and we can tell that right away Jack is bad news. He is with a group of guys that are obviously there to overthrow them, and Reed says it is something of a mistake by not shooting them like he asked, that he should have just done that, and Vita headbutts Madison, who had taken her to the bathroom to help her, and knocks her out. Reed says tie him up or he shoots them, and Reed tells her sidekick Jack to look for the captain and Nick. Daniel asks Alicia how he knows their names, and she says she didn't tell them, and basically, it's a crazy scene the way that was going on. We see them shoot the launch that was pulling away, and already tons of bad things are happening. But then we get a flashback to Strand looking at footage of the Katrina hurricane, and basically he talks about his dad being a strip mall preacher who's dead now, and he's talking to guest star Dewberry Scott, aka Thomas Sinclair, about their backgrounds. And basically, Strand says that everything he owns is in salvage, and the other guy brings up Strand's comment that he's bankrupt, and Strand tells him to skip out on a meeting he's dreading, but this guy says he's obligated. Strand helps the drunk guy to his room later and unties his shoes for him. He gets Thomas a bottle of water, pulls off his jacket. He's mostly passed out, and this was really our chance to see if Strand was legit, what his real mission is, what he's really trying to do, because as we know, he said that they're going to Mexico for weaponry. That's really what this is all about, but I think this episode starts to hint that there definitely is something more going on that he doesn't want them to know about. Because Strand checks his wallet, he flips through his cards, and the guy says maybe he won't remember. Strand tugs his credit cards into his pocket and shushes him. And again, we don't know what's really going on here. It's very interesting. We go back to the present. Reed then asks Ophelia if she hears a gunshot wound. If she has a gunshot wound, then asks Alicia who has the key to the boat. Ophelia says the guy that they shot was the captain who had the key, and he asks Chris if it's true, then slaps him. Reed holds a gun to Chris's head, and Travis says please stop. I mean, you can tell that they actually do want to kill them, and he keeps counting to 5. Travis says Strand has the key. They kind of are powerless over them. They can't really do anything here. Travis says that they don't need the keys. They can just hotwire the boat, but let his son go. He stops and lets Chris go. Vita brings Madison in, says that she's okay. The girl shoves her down, and Alicia says that Nick is gone. And Daniel says that Strand abandoned ship, and they shot at him, and Jack says that Strand ripped out the wheelhouse radio, and Reed says to find the radio and contact Connor, and Jack pulls Alicia aside, says it will be better once Connor is there, and you don't really know if Jack actually does care about Alicia. He seems to not actually want to hurt her, and we know that these two really did bond. I mean, obviously, Alicia doesn't want to kill Jack because of the fact that they did bond, the fact that he did help her get some closure over Matt, if you remember her boyfriend. They talked about that, so you can tell that she really is trying to go on here. She's trying to trust him, but she doesn't really know, and we see gore-covered Nick is on shore looking for an address that's written on a piece of paper. He's within a zone that's blocked off by fences. He staggers past an infected who doesn't register him at all, and we see Strand pouring coffee in his hotel room. A man then comes looking for him, and it's Thomas Abigail, the guy that he robbed, which is, now we're starting to understand why this ship might be called Abigail, because this guy's name is clearly Thomas Abigail, and that's really what it's about. So we introduce the other man as Luis, and they come into the room. Thomas looks at the nice suit that he had hanging, and he says at least Strand knew what to buy. Luis says that he took out $36,000 in cash advances, and Thomas asks where the money went, and he says he bought debt to collect. Thomas says he seems like a man who can create beauty from something coarse, and Strand sits across from him and says that to call the cops or he can pay him a return on his investment. Luis wants to hurt him, and Thomas says meet him downstairs at the bar. He tells Strand he's obligated, not pardoned, and again, not quite sure what's going on in the scene, but just the fact that his name is Thomas Abigail, you can tell this guy pretty much is probably the reason why the ship's called Abigail. So Strand struggles with the sinking raft. He drops his satellite phone and it sinks into the water. And for the first time, it doesn't seem like Strand is in control here. You see that Strand is actually struggling. And Travis looks to see if he can hotwire the boat. And I like that Travis is trying to take over here because he really feels like he's the one that can fix this. And Reed says tell him if he's full of shit. And he tells the guy it's computerized and he needs to override it down in the engine room. Daniel, Madison whisper and wonder where Nick is. She asks if Daniel Daniel can get loose, and Travis says it's an hour to get the boat running. Madison asks Vita about the baby, and she says she doesn't know when she's due, but guesses 4 weeks, and this is something else that Madison's very concerned about. The fact she has a pregnant woman on board. I mean, this woman is heavily pregnant, and Madison needs to do some of that. This woman needs medical attention. She can't just disregard her, even though there's all this chaos going on. This woman's having a baby. She's not going to ignore her because she's having that baby. She wants her to have the baby. She wants things to go well. She needs to actually help her, and she doesn't really want to, but she kind of has to, which is very interesting. And Madison says that means any time now. Vita says that she just wants the baby out, and of her mentions that she's having a daughter, and basically Connor radios Jack. He asks about Alicia, then says he's looking forward to meeting her. Alicia asks Jack if any of what he told her was true, because she doesn't really trust him right now. She wants to, but she doesn't really know. He says part of it was, she asked him how many came before this and how many died. He says he's sorry about this, about the one that read shots. She says Strand was no better, and they've done worse on this boat. She's not really upset that Strand was, shot, because again, they don't really trust this guy. So Alicia says maybe they found each other for a reason. Jack asks her to come back with him. Alicia says with her family, and Alicia really is convinced that her and Jack have something, that this is a good guy, and that she really does want to be with him. And yeah, she's kind of in denial, but I get it that Jack really was the one to heal her. Jack was the one to calm her down. Jack made her think that everything was going to be okay, and she was just too trusting. That really was the problem. And he says their resources are limited. She says her family has to come. She says she'll contribute and help and can be with them if she knows her family is safe. And she says to protect her, and she says to protect her family, to make sure that they're protected. And Jack considers it and nods. He cuts her hands loose, and it seems like he's genuine. It seems like he genuinely does want to help her family. It seems like he does genuinely care about her. But again, you don't know if he's full of shit or if he actually is serious about this. So Alicia hugs him, he wraps his arms around her, and Nick bounces a ball, bounces a basketball as he walks up the street, then looks in a window. He knocks on the door, and then someone is there with his gun out. Nick holds up his hands and says, "Don't shoot." Nick holds up the paper and says, "Abigail," and then the guy says about time. He says that they had boat troubles. The guy is loading stuff in the car, and Nick asks why not stay here behind the gates, and it's Luis, the guy who knows Thomas, which is very interesting. The fact that we actually saw Luis here, I thought was interesting that we saw him, and the guy complains about Nick's stench and says go take a shower. He asks what he means by all of us when you mentioned the boat, and Daniel works on his bonds, but whispers to Madison that he needs more time, and it's interesting to see Daniel helpless here. Daniel can't really do anything. Daniel's always the one that's quick to kill. Daniel's always the one that's like, I'm going to just get my gun and shoot them. If Daniel were to do this, he'd probably just take him out. But because Daniel's tied up, he can't really do anything. So I thought it was interesting to see some of the other characters that haven't done as much had to do stuff here. Chris had to do stuff. Travis had to do stuff. It was interesting to watch, and I really liked that. So the girl pours a drink. Madison says one drink won't hurt her. She asks the girl when was the last time she felt the baby move, then says that she lost one between her two kids, and she says the heart just stopped beating, and he asks again when she last felt her move, and Madison says the baby died, it could turn, and that it could very well turn into a walker, which is obviously a problem. So Ophelia asks, wouldn't she feel a thing writing inside her? Vita freaks and attacks her, but Reed makes her stop. This is clearly something that Vita hasn't thought about. Now she's starting to think about it, and obviously it's making her crazy. So Travis hides a tool in the chair cushion, a crowbar, and then Travis and Reed go back to the engine room. Nick is cleaned up with Luis, says he has transit for two, Strand and Luis, and Luis says he's known Strand since he met Tom, and Luis says his mom raised him and Thomas together. Nick asks if it's safe there, and Luis says his mother would be safe anywhere, especially this one. They head down to a hidden raft on the beach, and we go to a flashback to Celia with Thomas, and he asks about Luis, and Strand is there too. Strand tells Thomas that Celia and Luis, neither one like him, and Strand talks to Thomas about presenting to the council, but he won't let him talk business at that point. Strand says after this, going back to this reality is terrible. Thomas says put off the meeting and stay. He says they will never want for anything, and he says a home for Celia and Luis, and this for him makes him feel like the rest of the world has fallen away. And he holds out his hand to Strand, who takes it away. They look like a couple, and it's interesting. They actually look like a couple here. So to me, it seems like Strand and Thomas could actually be a gay couple, and this is something that we never knew about, which would make sense why Strand is trying to hide who he really is. He's clearly not okay with being gay. He thinks there's something wrong with it, and I think it's very interesting. So Reed paces, says that Connor's there. He tells Travis to start the engine now. The other bull pulls up and several people get off. Travis starts the engine. Connor and Ben come on board with guns out, and Vita says, finally. Connor asks why they hurt her, but then says that they only need Alicia and Travis. That's really all they care about. They don't care about anyone else, because Alicia and Travis, the fact that Travis is trying to take over, then the fact that they care about Alicia. Jack says they need to get them to shore. Connor agrees, and the fact that this Connor guy, I mean, he pretty much controls everything. You can really tell they don't really have a choice. What Connor says goes, and Alicia and Travis are led out with bags over their head, get onto the boat. The others are left behind. Daniel keeps working on his bonds, and you really do see, I'm not going to say we see a lot of Negan and Connor, but you kind of see a lot of, who is that guy in Terminus? You kind of see a lot of him in Connor. I mean, I definitely do see that. Reed says Connor has a weak stomach. Madison says to put his on the launch, and she says that they'll go to shore. She says they can't take the boat. Reed says that the launch is part of their yachts. Madison says that they'll swim to shore. They hear a noise and go look, and Nick cautions Luis that there are people on board with guns, and obviously it's very dangerous, and he says the ones with guns are not theirs, and Louise pulls out a rifle, takes out two of them, knows right away that these guys are not to be trusted, and already knows that they definitely are not from him, and Madison stabs a distracted Reed with a crowbar. Then Chris grinds it in, and they take the guns, and Nick and Louise come on board. Nick says that Strand sent him to get Louise, and Madison says that Strand left. Now remember, Jack only seems to care about Alicia and Travis. Those are the two that he seems to care about. The rest, he just wants killed. He doesn't care what happens to them. If they get killed, he doesn't care. He just wants to save Alicia and Travis. So Madison says Strand left, and they shot at his raft, and Madison says they have to get to Travis and Alicia, because obviously they don't really know if Jack is taking them to safety. You know, they're thinking that maybe Jack isn't really someone to be trusted, and we don't really know either if Jack is really being sincere. So Daniel wants to leave Strand, but Louise says if they don't have Strand, they're not going to Mexico. It's that simple. If there's no Strand there, there's no Mexico. Which it's clear that they are in fact going to Mexico, that is the plan, that they are actually headed there, but I think for different reasons. We see in the past, Thomas tells Strand he can't leave, says there are riots. Strand promises to come back in 2 days and kisses Thomas, but Thomas worries about the outbreaks, and it's clear that Thomas and Strand, I think this confirms that Thomas and Strand were in fact a gay couple, and this is a very interesting direction. Now, of course, we didn't know much about Strand. We thought that, of course, the Abigail, of course, was referencing like a daughter or a love interest or something, but it wasn't. It was referencing, of course, Thomas Abigail, which is his boyfriend, someone that Strand obviously is keeping very close to him, but I don't think he wants anyone to know that he's gay. One, that wasn't as common back then, as we know the show does take place like in 2010, obviously, but I'm sure, yeah, it was common then. It wasn't that. I don't think he's necessarily trying to hide the fact that he's gay. I just don't think he wants a lot of people to know the real reason. I think this is something that they don't really expect. I think they expect Strand to be a certain way, and he's not that way. And just this reveal really adds to Strand's character. It makes me care more for Strand. I think it's really interesting that they took him in this direction, and I really do like that. The fact that Abigail isn't based off a girl, it's based off Thomas Abigail, I think is very interesting. I really do love seeing that. And we know that Strand is legit. We know that they are going to Mexico. We know that Louise and him were friends, and I definitely do love seeing that. So now we see Strand floating in the water. Madison pulls up in the launch, pulls him out of the water, and basically feels that they need him. I think this really makes Madison realize that they do need him. He knows what he's doing. They need someone like him. He's a good leader, and basically he needs to lead this corrupted crew off the boat because they really don't trust them. So overall, guys, probably the best episode of Fear the Walking Dead we've had. I mean, this episode was incredible. I really loved it. There was high tension here, and it really, like I said, was an episode full of consequences. Everything that Alicia did. Now, let me just reiterate, Alicia didn't really do anything wrong. I mean, Madison told her straight out to be on the radio, and if she hears anything bad, to let her know. We know that Madison wanted to save people. This was someone that Alicia genuinely trusted because of the fact the conversation she had with Jack, she didn't want them to get close, they just happened to. But the real question is Jack really sincere? Does he really want to save Alicia and Travis, or does he have a different plan for them? Which I really feel like he does. I don't know, just something about it. His exchange to them when he says, oh, I want to save you guys, it just doesn't seem as sincere as it should. So I already don't really trust Jack, especially since Jack doesn't make a decision. Connor seems to. I really feel like something is very bad is headed for either Travis or Alicia. I do like that Travis is starting to take charge, though. I like that he's starting to realize that they need to take charge, they need to start killing people, and I like that Madison's starting to understand that, yes, people are going to die and people are going to turn. It's really good. I like the characters becoming a lot more resourceful with that. They're no longer like, oh, no, that's not possible. Madison knows that, these people are going to turn. They know that they're going to need to kill them, especially, like, the baby, is something that they need to worry about. It's something, and obviously, I don't think that, now I can't think of her name. I don't think it's something that, I can't think of her name right now. What was her name? The girl that's pregnant, I don't think that she ever thought, Vida, I don't think Vida ever thought, Vida, however you pronounce it, ever thought that, the baby, this would happen to the baby, but it is possible that if the baby died, it could very well turn into a walker, and obviously this is something that they're very worried about. They need to get the baby out, and we'll have to see what happens with that, so that's going to be very interesting what happens there. As far as Nick goes, I like Nick going in this direction, teaming up with Louise. Basically, Louise is going to be the one to help out Strand, and I'm thinking Strand is going back to see Thomas. I feel like that's really what this is about, that going to Mexico. Thomas is in Mexico. He wants to go back to him. He told Thomas he'll be there. Now that an apocalypse is happening, I feel like Strand wants to be closer to Thomas, and I think that's very interesting. And of course, him being so protective of his boat, it makes sense now because of the fact that he had this gay lover, Thomas, someone who he very much cared about, someone who he wanted to protect, and basically who he left. This is his way of keeping that closeness with Thomas, and I think Strand has this fear as well that Thomas could be dead, that Thomas could have turned into a walker, that Thomas could have died out, and he honestly is kind of worried about that, and I think it's very interesting, and again, really just adds these layers to Strand's character we haven't seen before, and really makes me love his character more than I already did. I already really did care about Strand, but this makes me care about him even more, and I really did love seeing that. I mean, this was really, I think, really just a great episode for Strand. It really shows that he is legit. It shows that he is to be trusted and that he really is a good leader. And I think Madison's realizing that they do need a leader like Strand. This is his boat. They're on his boat. They're someone that he can trust, and he needs to lead the crew off the boat because obviously they're bad news. I mean, the fact that Daniel can't even do anything, it's a really bad situation. I don't really know they're going to get out of this, and we'll have to see what happens there, but that's going to be very interesting to see what goes on with that because I think that whole situation is going to be very interesting. The fact that Nick is now killing walkers, I think, is awesome to see. Just the fact that we're getting more killing in general. That's the kind of stuff you want to see here. Even though this is a family drama and the show is propelled by that family, I think the show is really starting to show that this family is starting to understand the rules of the apocalypse and what you need to do when you're in this situation. You can't just sit back. You need to take action, and I think the family's starting to understand that, and I really do love seeing that. As far as Jack goes, like I said, does Jack genuinely care for Alicia? I want to hope he does. I mean, it seems like a lot of what he says is true, but then a lot of what he says doesn't seem true. So I don't really know. Does this guy care for Alicia? I don't really know. This guy just doesn't seem like good news to me. Something about him, I mean, just something about him, the way he talks, the way he acts, I really don't trust this guy. But this episode, like I said, really made things a lot more interesting. I think this season overall has been really good. I really enjoyed it. But I think this episode really made things a lot more interesting, really showed what the show's capable of. It was probably the most high tension we've had in the show so far. Definitely the most high tension we've had since the finale of season 6, without it. The finale of season 6, I mean the finale of season 1, without a doubt. But even more tension here because there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know if these characters are going to live. We don't know if these characters are going to make it past this vote. We don't know if the characters are going to be thrown overboard. We don't know if these guys are even meant to be trusted. We don't know if Strand is going to be okay. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty going on here, and I really do love seeing that. So I'm really looking forward to next week's episode. I haven't been this excited for Fear the Walking Dead in a while, but this episode, like I said, really did show the show, I think, to its fullest potential, and I really love this episode because of that. I think they really did a lot of great things with it. I love that exchange between Chris and Ophelia as well. I definitely like the bonding there. And I like they are starting to show everyone. They aren't really forgetting anyone. Again, the fact they have a small group, that really does help them out. But again, Alex had nothing to do here. Do I really care? No, because Alex wasn't that interesting of a character. But the fact that they introduced Alex last week, make her seem like a big deal, and then have her do nothing in this episode, I mean, was kind of strange, definitely. The fact that she's on this boat, I mean, she's still on the boat, right? She's a main character this season. She should be on the boat, but apparently we didn't even see her, so I don't really know why we didn't see her. It was kind of strange, especially because, like I said, most of last week's episode focused on helping out Alex and can we really trust her and is she really resourceful to the group, which we still didn't really get that answer, but we'll have to see what happens with that. But overall, guys, great episode. Absolutely love this episode. So many great things about it. Like I said, really showed the show to its fullest potential. I absolutely love this episode. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for the originals, which finally I'm reviewing the originals. Obviously, I know you guys want to talk about that. A lot of crazy stuff going on with that, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.